Connecting and building trust with your audience is one of the most important things you can do as an author. Selling a book or anything for that matter is tough, especially when it's advice-driven. You have to convince someone that you have something to say that will help them out in their specific situation, which means as an author, you need to know your ideal reader. So for today's episode, I'm going to go over the mistakes that I often see authors make with their ideal reader. And stick around for the end of the episode as I'll be answering a listener-submitted question about getting started with your book marketing. This is Your Path to Publish. I'm your host, Zach Christensen. For the past decade, our team has guided authors just like you to find the best path to publish your book, get people excited to buy it even before it launches, and to turn it into the ultimate business card to build your business and your legacy. If you are ready to get your book out of your head and into people's hands, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. So to kick off today's episode, I want to talk about a story something I experienced where I thought I knew exactly what I was saying, that it was correct, but in fact, it was not correct. And this is when I was learning the Korean language. When I turned 19, I served a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I was called to serve, as we would say, to go to Korea, and I served in the city of Seoul. Before I went to Korea, I went to a training center where we started to learn Korean. I was there for 11 and a half weeks. And I started learning how to speak it, how to do the grammar, the order, and it was tough. But as I was nearing the end of that 11 and a half weeks, we would go in and meet with some of our teachers and we would practice. And our intent was to teach people who were interested about our church. So there was two words that I got mixed up with each other. The word that I wanted to say as I was speaking was the word che, which means mistake or sin. But the word I was saying instead was chui, which means rat. And so I was going through this whole conversation, and the teachers were very gracious because they knew this was tough and they had been through this as well. But I was so confident in what I was saying that at the end, they gave me feedback and said, did a good job, but you kept saying chui instead of che. And chui means rat and che means sin. So it didn't make sense at all. So what I want you to think about as you're listening to this episode is about your ideal reader and being open to a mindset shift, and that you may be able to better connect, build trust, and communicate with them by evaluating if you are making these 6 mistakes. So the first one is being too broad with your ideal reader, meaning you may be thinking you have a target reader in mind, but it's really too broad, and that may be an extension that you think your book and your message is for everyone. Now, the solution to that is to get clear on who your ideal reader is. And more specifically, and I've talked about this in other episodes, is what's the challenge that you're trying to address? Second is not meeting them where they are at. And I've done this many times as I've been throughout my career. We tend to speak to people at times in the solution state that we provide. So we see into the future, we see how our solution is going to help their problem. But we're not talking to their future self, we're talking to their current self. And we need to talk to them using that current state, their current experience, language, and communication. Third is not being clear. Sometimes we're in our subject expertise and everything so much, it becomes second nature to us. When I was talking about learning Korean, there was words that I learned and sentences and things I would say that became second nature. And at times it's hard to forget what it's like to be a beginner. As you're putting your messaging together, as you're talking to your audience, as you're writing your book, what are the things that you need to do to lead your reader along to help them understand? And sometimes you have to be really clear and spell it out. And part of this, especially in your marketing and bringing someone into being interested in what you're doing, is you need to make it simple, because simple will grab someone's attention. The fourth is placing yourself as the hero instead of the guide. You are there to write a book to help someone, most likely. Now, you may be doing a legacy project and you're just writing it for yourself a lot, or for your family, or for someone else. That is great. But most likely for a lot of listeners here, you're writing a book that is intended to help somebody, whether in business or self-help or some other way. And when I buy a book, I look for the value of what it's going to provide to me. You're the guide. Your reader is the hero, and you're guiding them along. The fifth mistake is not keeping it simple, which I've gone over a little bit already. But it's as a reminder that you need to throw out your expertise and put on the hat of a beginner. And finally, number 6, assuming you know how they are feeling about their current challenge or problem. Now, you may have gone through a similar experience as the author, and that's why you're writing this book. And you know what? It's all right to share your experience and tell your reader how it made you feel, share stories, but it doesn't mean that your audience is going to react the same way that you did. So to address that, focus on describing the circumstances of what they are experiencing, especially as you're marketing, especially as you're introducing your topic in your book. This is going to help them think to themselves, wow, this author gets me. They understand me. Because you're describing their circumstances and what their day-to-day life is, and not how they're necessarily feeling about it. They're going to place those feelings on that circumstance because that's where they're at. So as you're going through these 6 mistakes, think about which of these do I make and how can I adjust and shift it. So if you'd like to discuss more about your ideal reader and how to hone in on them, go to juxtabook.com and schedule a free consultation. And in the next episode, we're going to talk about a very fun topic, how to turn a bad book title into a great one. You can have the best book in the world, but if the title doesn't reflect the content, it can have a hard time getting traction. If you have a question about a recent episode that you'd like to submit, you can look at the show notes and go to the appropriate link, or visit juxtabook.com/yourpathtopublish and click on the appropriate link to leave your question.
My question for you is, as a new author, what should I be doing for marketing? What's the best way to get started, and what pointers do you have for a new author with marketing?
To get started with your author marketing, you're going to need to think about a few foundational steps, because that's going to influence everything that you do moving forward. I've talked about this many times before, and so I'm not going to go into much detail with it, but the first step is to understand your audience. Who are they? Where are they hanging out? And how are you going to connect with them? And above that is, how are you going to make sure your brand connects with them through your messaging? So it's essential that you portray yourself as a solution to their problem or their challenges. And that's the importance of clearly articulating who you are and what you're about in your messaging. If you're in the early stages, it's okay. You just may be starting to write your book, or you may have your book further along or nearly done, but understanding that at any point will help you in your writing process and in how you're going to market your book. So the next foundational aspect I want to talk about is storytelling. You are narrating a story in your book, but you're also narrating your author journey. And by sharing that, no matter what stage you're in, is going to be a way that you can connect with your audience. Some things that you can share in your author journey is what you're working on that day, what you're struggling with, what you're most excited about. You could share pieces of your writing, talk about what you're discovering. You're bringing others on a journey so that they learn about who you are and you build that trust. Now, the great thing about this is that you're going to be able to do this, and whatever medium you put this out with, you're going to be able to say, here's what I'm working on, without directly asking people to buy. And when you do ask for that sale and ask for them to buy your book or your services, they're already going to have that foundation of trust built with you. Another step beyond that, as you're telling your story, is engaging with your readers as they engage with you. And if someone comments, responds back, emails you, make sure you're engaging with them, because you're building those connections one at a time. Another foundational step that you can use to get started with your marketing is, as you're talking about things, talk about the challenges and pain points of your audience. Lead with those, because that's what's going to bring people into your story. You may have a solution, but your audience may not understand that's the solution that they need to solve their challenge or problem. So as you're leading with the pain points and you're discussing these challenges, it's going to make your content immediately relatable to your audience, rather than just solely focusing on the solutions that you provide. The other part of this is, as you're doing all this, you got to be consistent with it. Make sure that you're posting, emailing, contacting, engaging consistently, even if it's just one-on-one, and it may not be in the way that you think will be the most efficient in the short term, but it will be effective in the long term. So determine what that is and be consistent at it. To wrap up with this, know your audience, become a strong storyteller, and engage people with telling your story as the author. Third, talk to the pain points when you're discussing and marketing what you're doing. And fourth, be consistent. Thanks for listening today. Go out there, dust off your manuscript, and turn it into a best-selling book that grows your business.